am really excited to dive right in. Hopefully you have your water in a wine glass nearby so we can stay nice and hydrated and we don't eat all of the ingredients before we're done. So do get your water in a wine glass and let's get started. Okay, so our ingredients that we're going to be using today are right here, and we're going to interject some principles, right? My Grandma Lou principles, and I love to reactivate the ways of the mothers and the grandmothers, right? So we know that means that we're going to take one ingredient, we're not going to waste each ingredient, we're going to flip it every which way to Sunday, and then also what I'm adding on to the tradition and the culture, right? We always want to add something to leave our culture more beautiful and beneficial than we inherited it. So I like to take a lot of the principles of those Afro-Southern and Afro-Caribbean flavors and ingredients, and I like to present them whole, fresh, and natural without freezing them to death or cooking them to death. I want to present them natural, so we have all that natural water, living water, and fiber, and those natural sugars in them, and they're still boosting to the immune system, and they're still very satiating and satisfying. So we're going to add some creativity and some of our chef skills. So we're going to make sure that we're rinsing our fruit, and what we have today, we have some pitaya or a dragon fruit. So this is going to be the white one. How interesting is that? And here we have a red or rosa dragon fruit. We have a fresh coconut, nice water coconut that's nice and full. And I do have some that I already have cracked here, some of the same coconuts. So this is one of the younger coconuts. So I like to say that you can find them in the baby or the younger coconut, the teenager, and also the senior coconut. So the senior coconut is going to be more of these guys here, which is still full of lots of water, right? And we're going to make sure that we don't see any mold. This one's a little cracked here, so you usually want to be very mindful. We want to try to not get them with a little hole. If I know that they have just come off the tree, sometimes I'll take them like this. But if you're buying them from a wholesaler, you usually want to make sure that all of the eyes are nice and solid and intact. Kind of like these here where they're totally sealed, right? Those are air sealed. If you see any kind of discolorations on the coconut, that you can usually be a sign of bacteria. So if you see purples or reds or any black or any mold, those we want to discard. The water inside of the mature coconuts is also edible. It may not be as sweet as these coconuts, and there are also some varieties like this that are yellow that may not be as sweet, but they're still nice and fresh, and the coconut water is very, very hydrating. So coconut is a staple around these parts. Today, we're also going to be using the fruit that is seasonal. So in addition to the pitaya or the dragon fruit, we're going to be using some papaya, and this papaya is ripe. Some folks don't like papaya because quite often they're eating it when it's not ripe. So the papaya actually can start to look very bruised. In some cases, papaya is an exception, where the skin can start to even look like it's starting to mold a little bit. You don't want it too mushy, but sometimes you can cut those pieces off and it will still be good. So papaya is definitely a fruit that you want to eat when it's very ripe. The papaya contains an enzyme called papain, which is a really good digestive enzyme for those folks that may find certain foods hard to digest and they're buying those digestive aids inside the health food store. Usually you'll find papain, that enzyme from the papaya, or bromelain, which you will find inside of pineapple. So these digestive enzymes, these natural enzymes, can help us break down and digest some of those undigested meals that are still sitting in the system. So they're very good for your digestion. Also, I found out that papayas are very good for arthritis. So I also have some seasonal oranges. The oranges locally where I am, sometimes they can be green, but they're still ripe, right? And I also have some local lime. Some folks call this local lime or Jamaican lime. These limes usually have lots of seeds in them. Their skin isn't as thick as the limes that you'll see coming over from Mexico that are more green. I find these are much more flavorful, and I find actually are much more perishable, so they don't last as long. And then another staple here we have are the bananas, right? So we're not going to be adding any artificial sweeteners. So we're going to make use of all the fresh natural ingredients that we have here. Right, so I do have some of my extra bowls here. Now, some other things that you want to keep handy is a cake tin, right? And this cake tin, there are all different types of tins. I like this one because the bottom is removable. If you have the tins where it's not removable, what you can do is cut out. You can put this flat on top of your prep table or your counter and put a piece of wax paper and take a little marker and draw around it and cut it out. And then you can put that down in the center. You can even take a bigger piece and cut out some wax paper for the sides and the bottom, and that can help you to lift it out if you don't have a removable bottom. So that's a little pro tip. So this is what we're going to use for our cake. And I also like to keep lots of little spatulas and spoons, mixing spoons around, as well as some serving bowls. You're also going to need a cutting board, as well as your bowls. And I have all different types of knives. I love knives. So here's my regular chef's knife. And we're going to make sure for safety that we do not leave the knives in the sink, because someone could come behind you and put their hand, or you could put your hand in there and you could cut yourself. Also, when we're working with the knives, we want to be very mindful to put the knife facing away from us. So I've got all my little doodads here. I've got some nice water. And I've also got another little knife here. Right? These are some of my favorite knives. I'll use them for different purposes. Sometimes this can be a little challenging to really peel fruit with. Some people are really handy. They can do a lot of different things with one knife. And here's also a smaller paring knife for peeling. So this has already been cracked out of the shell. There are different ways to crack the coconuts. So I have a couple of handy dandy tools. I do have a hammer for my more mature coconuts, for these here. And I've been known to crack them. My grandma Lou taught me how to crack them. And then we also have a little machete. So machete is very multi-purpose, not for children. I have a machete that I'll use out in the garden, and that is what is traditionally used in tropical climates to remove bananas and coconuts from the trees, and also to chop them open. So not for children or the inexperienced. Something else, an alternative, if you're in the city, you can also take a little mallet, and you can use one of these, and you hammer it into the side of the coconut, and then you can just take and lift the skin out, and you'll have a hole in it, and then it's a lot easier to open the coconut. Right? So we have options. Let's see if I have a little mallet so I can show you what that looks like, because these two can be used together. So this is an example. One of the names you can find it under is Cocoa Jack, and I do have some links to it. When folks are asking you for what different types of tools you'll use inside the kitchen, I have a whole list of different types of prep tools on the website, and if you don't find it, you can feel free to send me a message, and I'll be glad to send that over to you. So now with the coconut meat, and again, I can use this for different things. I have some handy shears. I'm just going to cut this open. So I cracked this earlier and just put it inside the bag. Let's get rid of the hammer because we're not going to crack the other coconut now. And we're just going to let you see how we're going to trim this coconut meat. So here we go. So I'm going to open this up. And again, you can find this now. They carry this at Whole Foods. So this literally just came out of the shell. And if you hold it too long inside the fridge, you can get a little slimy if it's fresh. I don't know, they may have it frozen on the refrigerated section. So what we're going to do, we're going to peel all of this off. This is going to be one of our main ingredients. So I'm going to make sure that I rinse the coconut off. Rinse it off real good. And it's a good idea to have a little garbage bowl, and we're going to put the rest of this fruit over to the side for a moment. I've got plenty of water. So it's a good idea to have a little prep bowl here. Right, so any of the things that you're peeling or your seeds, you're going to drop it right in. So that's what we're going to do with this coconut meat. So should I use this? Oh, this is one of my favorite knives. I'm going to make sure they're nice and sharp. So what I'm going to be doing is trimming all of this off. I want it nice and smooth. Actually, I can put this in here. So some folks think it's a lot of work to prep food, but I actually find it's a beautiful meditation and wonderful quality time with self. So again, we want to get rid of all of this. We don't want these pieces. And then we want it nice and smooth and nice and clean. And there's so many different things I can do with this coconut meat. Sometimes I can put really good music on when I'm inside of the food prep area, aka the kitchen, aka the healing laboratory. And then sometimes I can just be in silence or dancing or listening to the birds outside. So we're going to give all of these a nice peel, and then we're going to compost that part of the coconut. Alright, so again, you can find this meat usually right at Whole Foods. You may even, if you're lucky enough, fortunate enough, you may be able to find it at a Thai grocer. So we're going to take our time and peel all of this. So we have our other bowl handy right over here at the side. So some of the other tools we're going to be using today, in addition to our knife, our cutting board, our spatula, and our cake pan, is a food processor or a blender. A Vitamix is fantastic. If you don't have a Vitamix, you have an older blender or older model blender, you want to just be mindful. You just want to be mindful of cutting before you put things into the blender, to cut them up into smaller pieces and add your product or your ingredients gradually so that you don't clog up the blender or you don't burn out the motor, right? So depending on the type of blender you have, some folks actually go by the watts in determining how powerful the blender is, but it's not so much the watts, it's the motor. It's the motor. You want to make sure you get a good motor in. So Vitamix, I found hands down one of the better blenders, like the best blender I've ever had. But you do have some alternatives today. Actually, I find that NutriBullet, one of my clients was using NutriBullet as she was going on her vacation, so that she could stay on point with her exercise and her food. Shout outs to her. She knows who she is. I actually think that their NutriBullet blender is actually a decent deal if you're looking to manage your money or maybe on a little bit of a budget. It's affordable and it's decent. It's very decent. It's doable and it's a fraction of the cost. So we do have options. We do have options. So we're just going to take our time and relax and peel the more fibrous, rough brown parts, the inner part of that shell. It's not tough like the mature coconut, but we want a very smooth texture in our coconut, right? And so some folks may be allergic to different types of nuts. Someone that may not be able to tolerate almonds or pecans may be able to tolerate coconut, and there's some folks that have allergies to coconuts. So we have so many different cakes to make in the future. We can flip all different types of ingredients. So you can get as simple or as decadent. And again, notice these ingredients are very moist because they still have the living water intact. So making sure that we trim this thoroughly. And see, that would be considered the coconut jelly. Trim all of this off, salvaging as much of the coconut as we can. And then we're going to give the coconut, when we're done trimming this fibrous part off, we're going to give it another rinse. And you're going to see how lovely these cakes can be. So there are all different types of variations that we can do in this cake. I've done all different types of cakes, from blueberries, strawberries, mulberries. So I'll make from whatever is available to me. Again, that is one of the principles. Use what you have, right? Because certain times of the year, you see, especially as you start growing more food, that when the harvest is done, it's done. So for example, I love mangoes. Mangoes are one of my favorite food and my birthday food. But when the season is done, it's done. So I wait all year, all the entire year for mango season, and I can't wait to see the blossoms on the trees. So they can be a little pricey sometimes, depending on your location, if they're not a local fruit to you. But with technology, you can have them flown in. They may be a little pricey. I encourage you to buy from a food co-op if you can, because usually the folks there are going to be much more passionate about the quality of the food that's coming in. There are actually now also options to have fruit flown to you from producers in Florida and the more tropical regions in the States. So it's a really good thing to get a relationship with the farmers, because they usually will know the best time and the best deals. And it's wonderful the more you talk to those farmers and they appreciate it. They tell you, learn so much about how your food is produced. And I welcome you to visit the areas and the people that are growing your food. You get a whole nother respect for your food. I really believe it's or have found it to be a missing element, where all those folks that are dieting, really having a connection to your food can really make a huge difference and get you off that diet roller coaster, because you're engaged in the living process of your consumption. So I think that's the majority of it. We've trimmed just about everything off. So now this is what we're going to compost. So this is what we're going to compost, and this is what we have. Oh, I see one little tiny piece here of that brown. So this is what we're going to keep. I'm going to rinse this off. And we're going to compost this here. So I'm constantly composting. Constantly composting. That's a good thing. Okay. So that's our first ingredient down. Later, I'm going to open this up so I can have a nice drink of coconut water. I'll also use the coconut water in smoothies and shakes, or just drink it plain. This has so much potassium in it. It's the original sports drink. And it's Mother Nature's filtered water. Okay, so we still have the rest of this fruit that we're going to be working with. So let's take our cake, or our ingredients for our cake, and we're going to go on over to the food processor over here. Let's see if we can back this up so you can see. Make sure we have enough room for you to see. Yeah, I think that's pretty good. And we're going to use our Cuisinart today. I do like the Cuisinart food processor, but again, you can use whatever you have. So I'm going to be using the S blade. So again, be very careful with the blades. So maybe place that right in there. And let's see, now do I want a frosting? Oh, we're going to start with some simple cakes, and then eventually we're going to graduate to some other ones. So I have the option of putting it either inside of the food processor, and I can also use the blender. So, which one is it going to be? Which one is it going to be? I think we're going to go with the food processor. So I'm not going to put it all at one time. You can feel free to break it up into smaller pieces. pause this for a moment. So we just have a little bit of this water in there. We don't need this. So I like to clean. So I really like to clean as I go. So I'm just going to rinse it out quickly. So we're not using a whole bunch of grease and fat and oil. I'm going to continuously clean as we go. So we're going to stop and take a look so that you can be mindful during the whole process. Right? So I want you to see what our coconut meat is looking like so far. So let's take a look in there. Now, that's not the texture we want. We want to blend this down to it's smooth. So, in addition, today we're going to be using natural sweetener. Today we're going to be using the bananas as a sweetener. So you're going to make sure that your bananas are ripe, not overripe, but definitely not underripe. Because if the bananas are underripe, they're going to be very starchy and you won't get all the sweetness. Right? So you're going to make sure they're not underripe. And then also the bananas have a nice color to it and they're going to blend really nice. So you want bananas that start to have a little bit of spots. Just a little bit. And then the skin we're going to compost because the skin of the banana is great for your garden. Great for your garden and for your compost tea. So again, we don't want them underripe. Underripe would mean that they're very hard or they're green. In that instance, it would be too starchy. So that's not what we want. Also, a good piece of trivia, you know that coconuts are one of the best fats for the brain. Also great for children and also for those folks that are working out or men folks that are concerned about muscle. One of the things that we use in the fitness world, right, is MCT oils or medium chain triglycerides, but guess where you find that in nature? In coconuts. So I'm going to put this back on. I'm going to let that blend. So periodically you can stop the blender. And what you're going to do is just go around the sides to smooth it down. And also I'll turn it off so I can make sure that it doesn't get heated because I do not want, you know, if I'm using the blender or the food processor, I don't want the food to get heated up. Right? I don't want to cook the food, so just the speed, a high speed of this stuff spinning around can contribute to it heating up. So you do want to turn it off periodically and scrape down the walls of your food processor or your blender. And we'll put this back on. So now you can feel free, if you had it on low, to put it up a little bit higher. So let's check it again, see how it's doing. So we do want this to blend down into it. It's a nice, smooth texture. So we're going to just check and scrape down the walls again so you can see it's breaking down very nicely. There's so much to be said for different textures. Right, and I don't want it watery. Right, and you have that good fat from the coconut. Let's blend it now some more because we really want to get this nice and a really smooth texture. So I'm going to show you once we have a smooth texture that we like. Now pause. While this is blending now, so we're going to be efficient with our time, we're going to take a look at our pitaya or our dragon fruit, and we're going to start peeling that. You know, one of my little secrets for flavorings, rather than buy all of those different flavorings from the store, these don't have any wax in them. I'm going to use, in addition to the banana, I'm going to use a little bit of orange flavoring. Orange flavoring. So instead of getting a chemicalized orange, I'm going to take one of my handy dandy little tools, take my little bowl, and let's see what other kind of little tools we got up in here. I love me some kitchen tools. I'm going to take a little strainer. Some of my favorite little tools for juice. So even if you didn't have a whole bunch of fancy equipment, these are some great tools for you to use. So I'm going to take the orange, and I call this a reamer. You can find these in wood. They usually carry these at my food co-op. And I can take, and this is really great to get all the juice, especially if you don't have a whole lot of water inside your lemons or limes. I still have a lot of that fiber also in there. So everything, I can smell all the perfumes here. Woohoo! I can smell all the perfume. I can rinse that with some water. Continue to clean as we go. So, I'm going to make sure I take a spoon. Get all my little juicy juice. And I've left it in terms of seeds, goes in the compost. And I'm going to add a little bit of this water. A little bit of juice, this fresh orange juice, living water. A little bit of flavor. I'm going to add that to the coconut mixture. So as this is blending nice and smooth, we're going to start to cut up some of our fruit. So now, when you're cutting your fruit, right, as far as presentation, you want to think of how you're going to place the fruit. Always going to save some for garnish. You may mix also some of the fruit into your cake. So there's so many different ways you can work with the cake. And today we're going to keep it really, really basic and simple. And again, in our future classes, we're going to build on. So this is breaking down nice. Now here's also where you can use your paring knife. So your chef's knife, these come in 8, 10, 12 inches, some really big ones. You're more than likely, you'll be able to maneuver this one a little bit better with paring your smaller fruits. You'll have more control of the knife. And so we're constantly washing our hands. Be very mindful and cleaning as we go. We're going to take our spoon again and we're going to check on the texture. So I think that can still be a bit smoother. So a lot smoother. Yeah, look at that. Yeah, I want it a little bit smoother, so I think. Can you taste it? And one of my other ingredients that I would like to add is a bit of this decadent lime. So, I leave it, and I'm going to squeeze this Grandma Lou style. The way Grandma Lou would squeeze it is like so. So I'm squeezing off my hand to make sure I don't get any of the seeds inside. And then I'll toss the seeds out. Now the other thing that we can do, which I think I really want to do, is if I want to add a bit more color to this, I can either keep it white like this. I'm trying to think, where do I want to add the color? Okay, do I want to put some inside the cake? I think I want to. So let's see what we're going to do. I think I'm going to add a little bit. I'm going to trim this little piece off. Right, cut around it because we don't want to waste anything. Cut that off, and I'm going to add this on the inside. So instead of using unnatural fruit colors and chemical colors, we're just going to add a bit of the actual fruit, and this should give us some really beautiful color. So we're going to add that in. I'm going to let that blend down some more. So this is what we have so far. We're going to, of course, keep composting as we go along. So let's check on the other part of our cake and see how it's doing. So you can see now, this has a really lovely color. Get my nice spoon, and I'm constantly rinsing my spoons off. We're going to go in again and scrape down the walls of this, and let's see if it's getting any more creamy. So now we've got that pretty color from the papaya or the dragon fruit. It's got all that beautiful luscious fat from the coconut. And so it's much creamier, but I think we can go for a bit more. I think we can go for a bit more of a smoother texture. I'm going to taste it. it also can go for a bit more of the Jamaican lime, right? So balancing, and I just dropped a little bit of a seed here. See, this is why it's good to use a bit of a strainer. All right, so you don't want to leave that seed in there, because if you leave the seed in there, that can make your whole cake a little bitter. Take that out. Okay, let's put this back in there. So let's get a bit more. Let's get it a bit smoother. Let's continue to work on our papaya. Interesting. Every now and then you get a papaya without seeds, which sometimes I think that's kind of, I think that's really interesting. If you all have seeds, but then there are also male and female papaya. Okay, so let's check on again. Let's go back in. And let's see if this is getting nice and smooth and creamy like we want it. Yeah, now it's getting like creamy. A little more creamy. That's good. The lime. Oh, the lime put it over the top. Still feel like I can use a little bit more lime. I think I'm going to use the rest of the juice of my orange. This is the juice of my orange. Let's get it back in here. Let's let it blend up a little bit more. Nice. So now we have our fruit. Let's put a nice little tea towel over the fruit. And now we're going to do something else with the mature coconut, which is, let's grab another little bowl. And we're going to crack this coconut here, just like Grandma Lou would do. So hopefully they're good, because every now and then you get a coconut that's not so good. So this is the way Grandma did it. This is the way I like to do it. Some people bust a coconut on a coconut, or a coconut on a rock, or a coconut on the ground. I like the hammer. I don't know if this one is really good. See, did we get a good one? This one looks pretty good, right? So we don't have any kind of discolorations. And then let's check another one. Sometimes you get a little good. sometimes you can tap or go around, twist it in your hand. And some of them have more water than others. Oh, we lucked out. We got two really good ones. So now we have to get this meat out of the shell. So we're going to keep the hammer around just in case we need it to assist us in getting more out of the shell. Now, some people get this out with a little knife, a paring knife. I have all different kinds of knives. So, now, this is something you want to be mindful of. If you have children, you want to take maybe perhaps another little tea towel, or you might have a towel just for that purpose. I'm going to let this blend a little bit more. And I'm going to start to shimmy the coconut out of the shell, and I'm going to still let this blend some more so this can get nice and creamy. You may want to keep this because you can use it for different types of bowls or jewelry. This is great to portion some of your food, especially for some of your more decadent treats. Do note, holding this with a towel helps to give me a better grip, so it's not sliding over the place, so I'm less likely to hurt myself with the knife. Now, let me give you a little pro tip. So this is coming out, this is shimmying out. But let's say you couldn't get some of this coconut meat out of the shell. So what I would do is I would grab my hammer, right? And I can turn this upside down. If you want, you can still grab onto the towel. And I can give this a tap, tap. Maybe crack it up with some more pieces. Did I lose a piece of coconut? I feel like I did, but I don't see it. You might lose a couple of pieces of coconut. And this can help loosen it out of the shell. Or start to crack it into smaller pieces. This can make it easier to get out of the shell. So you see the hammer is a great tool easily out of the shell. So with stuff like this, and you're still checking to make sure there's no funky looking pieces. I use all of this. If I see anything that looks kind of questionable, I will cut it off. And there's one other ingredient that I'm going to add here. And as I'm cutting the coconut, or shimmying this out of the shell, making me think of an ingredient. So sometimes you can get right here to the center of the coconut and you may find it's not coming out. So that's when you might want to crack it open, right? You can still use this for all kinds of tools, believe it or not, in the garden. And this could give you more access to get in there and lift those pieces out. There you go, and maybe a little bit more coconut. Let's see, maybe a little bit more. Oh, that delicious fat. I can make all kinds of treats out of this one coconut. I'll tell you now, human beings must have been real hungry because we figure out how to eat all kinds of stuff. Sugar cane, coconuts. I'm going to put this on just for a little bit more. Out. So hold on, let me get a nice sip of water in a wine glass because it's tropical here and it's hot. Ooh, I don't even have an oven on and it's hot in here. Okay, so let's check on this other part of our cake, part of the filling of our thing, and it looks like, wow, it's getting really nice and creamy now. I think it could use a little bit more lime juice. See that texture there? That's beautiful. That's good. That has nice flavor. A little bit more. And then we have our coconut for the other part of our cake. So also remember, these we can recycle for bowls. Sometimes I use these parts of the coconut to hold seeds in the garden. And then sometimes we can break them up for coconut coir, which is that's an excellent type of material for the garden because it can really help to hold the moisture in plants. I think I'll put this piece aside for later. Okay, let's check this again. Just a teeny drop more in terms of creaminess. So the other thing we're going to do now that we have our cracked coconut, we're going to take and we're going to rinse this off. Rinse off the cracked coconut. Rinse off our coconut, and there's one other ingredient that we need, and that is dates. So we're not using any refined sugar, but we will use a bit of dates. So I'm a lover of bowls and cups and stuff like that. So these dates, I think I prefer them with the pits. Now, maybe a little bit of work to take the pits out, but I think it's worth it. So what you're going to do, decadent dates, they're medjool dates, which are the big fat juicy ones. They're cauliflower dates, which to me just tastes like just little pieces of candy. So I'm going to take these seeds out. You can use these to plant for date palms. And we're going to make sure that we take the pits out, because if any of the pits get in there, they'll destroy your dish. So make sure we're mindful. Take another little dish here so I can put all of my date pits in here. I'm going to take all of those date pits out. So this is excellent to have your children or your nieces do with you, or maybe your partner, your hubby. It's an excellent little meditation. This is I think it's very relaxing. Those juicy dates. So these are decadent dates. As always, you're paying attention to the food. Look at how the food behaves. Dates are also really good for iron. And they are naturally very, very sweet. So when you're eating dates and other dried fruit, you want to be very mindful of making sure you brush your teeth. Right? Just because it's natural doesn't mean you want to leave all of this natural sugar on your teeth. You still want to make sure that you're brushing your teeth thoroughly. And get all of these pits out. So all of this has a lot of fiber in it. And again, with these dates, I can take this one ingredient and do different things with it. Oops, make sure that pit gets out of there. Get all our little dates out of there, because I think we're going to be using all of these dates. So instead of adding fake sugars, which don't have any nutrition in it, right, we're going to be using these dates as our sugar today. So I want you to also think of when you're buying ingredients, and the health food store can get very pricey. With these, I want you to again think of that term you hear me saying all the time, the living water and the living moisture in the food and the fiber, right? If I was to refine this into sugar, it doesn't really have any weight to it. But this has some degree of water, even though it's a dried fruit. And a good scavenger hunt is for you to taste the dates before they've been dried. I don't know if any of you have ever tasted them before they've been dried. Then they're of like a beige, dark beige tan color, and they have a lot of water. Nice and sticky with sugar. So this is going to be my sugar, part of my sugar today. And then there's also natural sugars inside of all of this fruit and all of this fiber. So now you have treats that just have naturally occurring vitamins and nutrients in it. Right, so this is beautifying food. Living with passion, not leaving waste on your waistline. So where can you find the dates? You can order them online. You can get them in bulk in the health food store, or definitely at your food co-op, food cooperative, or you can order them online. There are some places that specialize just in dates. Okay, so that's our dates, and we have all of these pits, which we can use out in the garden. Okay, so let's just I think we're going to give our cream just a bit more, a little bit more. So let's check it out. Let's see what our texture is saying here. I think that's good. Let's look at the texture. Nice and creamy. little bit more orange, a little bit more banana. I'm trying to think. Because sometimes you have to feel your way there. Do you want to make it a little bit creamier? I think I like the fat content. I think I'll keep that there. Maybe I'll use half of one more orange. I think I'll do that. Just a little bit more orange. Squeezing it grandma style. And we're going to go for one more spin. Get some hand towels. Now we're waiting for this to emulsify. We're going to chop up the coconut. This coconut is nice and sweet. Tastes like a candy bar I see even have a little drop. For the almond joy. Sometimes they have these coconuts called boomy coconut. They almost look translucent. They're hard, mature coconuts, but they almost look like translucent, almost to a blue color, and they are so syrupy, sweet. It's just like candy. Okay, so we've chopped this up into smaller pieces so this can be ready for the base of our cake. And I think this is done. One more go around. Take this out. Grab my little spatula. I'm going to hold the cream here for a moment. Oh, I can smell it. It smells nice and fruity. Some water. We don't need a whole bunch of dish liquid because we're not using a whole bunch of fat and grease and butter and oil. Right, so these are, when I'm talking about the natural fats that are so good from the inside for my hair and my skin, this is exactly what I'm talking about. So let's just rinse that out. We're going to rinse out the base of the food processor. And all we really need is some water. Make sure we're rinsing that out. We're going to clean as we go. Yeah, so that's one of the interesting things with the living fats. They're not, it has oil, natural oils in it, but it's not heavy and greasy. So you can start, when you're putting your hands in the food, you can distinguish. You'll start to really make some connections with processed foods, right? And it should also give you like a clue to how these different foods are behaving inside of the body. So let's keep some kind of a brush so I can really go into nooks and crannies of my equipment. I can make sure I don't have those particles of food in there. Stuff will wash easily away. Again, it's not greasy. It has natural fats in it, but it's not a greasy type of fat. It's not greasy, and it's actually not even oily. That's a big distinction. Huge distinction. And I like to take a brush. I like to go in the crevices of my equipment to make sure everything's nice and clean. But all of that good fat, but nothing is greasy. Such an epiphany. Rinse everything off with some good water. So you will save on a lot of dish liquid and stuff when you're not using a whole bunch of oil and butter and fat and lard. But keep in mind, we are getting plenty of good fats here. Okay, let's rinse our spoon again. Our casing spoon. Okay. Alright, so we're still going to be working with the Escalade. So we're going to put this food processor back together. Let's put the Escalade back on. Let's return back over here. So this is going to go inside. First, let's break down this coconut. So we're not going to put all of the coconut in at one time. Let's put this back together. So with the food processor, if you ever have issues with the food processor, sometimes it won't start if you don't make sure that you lock the base all the way down. So we're not going to add all of it at one time. Check in and see how it's breaking down. Check in and see how our coconut is coming out. I gotta say, my grandma Lou, after I was grating the coconut with the grater, we wanted to do this real off-grid style. Honey, little grate never hurt nobody, and it's give your children something to do. They stay busy, they stay out of trouble. And when I would grate everything down, my grandma would let me eat the little pieces of coconut, which I always look forward to. So I'm going to rinse this out with some water. There's a lot of things here we can just rinse out with water. And let me just go in and check and see how our coconut is breaking down. Now, it still has a lot of moisture because it still has some of the milk in there. Right? I'm going to add just a little pinch. Just a pinch of sea salt, evaporated seawater, just to balance out the different flavors on the palate. I'm going to let this break down a little bit more. Always so exciting to me. It's so exciting. So let's scrape down the walls, and we'll put it through one more time. So you can see how that coconut is breaking down. And the taste is always going to be so much more delicious when it's fresh. That's the secret. One of the biggest secrets to really tasty, delicious food is the freshness. Right? So you saw we cut everything up right here from scratch. Break down those walls again of the food processor. So guess what we're going to add next? Alright, so let's start adding in the dates. We're going to add them gradually. How this is shaping up. So we've added all of our dates gradually. So I'm sure we're going to have to mix it a little bit more so you can see how it's shaping up. All right. That's nice and sweet. Scrape down the sides of the wall of the processor. Let's put it through one more time. Always give it a little bit of tasty taste. That's so tasty, honey. Muy delicioso. Straight down the wall. Just about done because it's getting much more challenging to stir it inside of the processor. So that means I have to go into the bottom and stir it and turn it right from the bottom. Alrighty. So, now we're going to get to the fun part. More fun. Clean as we go. I don't think we need this knife anymore. We need to wipe down the counter a bit. Alright, so let's get our cake pan. Now we have so much good fat in here that we don't have to put oil and butter and all of that stuff down inside of the bottom. We don't need all of that stuff, right? We don't need it all. So we're going to spoon this mixture into the bottom of the cake pan. Make sure you can see. You can take off the S-blade. Expensive ingredients. I can smell the dates. I can smell that little bit of sea salt, and I can smell the coconut. Yeah. So now let's press this down into the cake pan. So we're going to kind of press from the center and smooth it out towards the edges so we can get a nice even base. And I'm going to spin the cake pan as I'm spreading it. Right, so I don't want a big clump in the middle. So I'm spreading it from the middle out to the side so that natural fat of the coconut is helping it to spread. It also has a nice height. Oh, it's so lovely. Oh, it's so lovely. Oh my goodness, you know what? I just start singing. Hold on, let me get a little sip of water. There's so many different variations I can do with the same ingredients. But it's like when you eat food, really tasty food, and you do the happy dance. You know, this is good time. This is good quality time spent with yourself. Yes, yes, yes. Alright, so look how that's shaping out. Isn't that lovely? It smells divine. Guess what comes next, y'all? Okay. Alright. Rinse off that spoon. Rinse. Hand towel. Keep plenty of hand towels. And my spatula. Look at the spatula. Where my spatula disappeared to? Okay. So let's go ahead and spoon this in. Make sure y'all can see. So this is why I really like these types of spatulas, because you can really get in there and get all of your base out. All your ingredients out. So I'm just going to smooth this around a bit. Even it out towards the sides. Actually, this cake has a good amount of weight on it. We're going to put some more weight on it. I'm gonna put a little bit more. Muy deliciosa. And we're gonna grab the honey again. We didn't make too much of a mess. Not too much of a mess. Now, little pro tip that you can do sometimes. You can just take and tap this around so this can even out. Now, so for even more fun, let's get our favorite tool, our knives. And let's come back to that lovely fruit. So I'm going to save these seeds because we can plant some of these. And let's come back to some of that fruit that we had earlier. So we had the white dragon fruit, and we had the rose dragon fruit, and we had the papaya. So, I think I'm most, well, this is tough. This is really tough. So let's see what we're going to do with the fruit. I think we can go here with this papaya. I think that's what I'm going to do with the papaya. So place it gently. Don't be too rough like I just was. See what else we can pop out. I love all these different patterns. They're coming right from nature. Can you fit one more in there? That was not big enough. Look at that. Look at that. Look at that. So that's what we got so far. I think I'm going to keep a little piece. Okay. Now let's see what we're going to do with this dragon fruit. With the papaya. How do you want to work that? And then we also have this white dragon fruit here. So let's say, cut it in half this way. See? Let's cut it again this way. So, I'm going to try to be mindful of cutting them the same size. So, it will be appealing to our eye. Pricey. Making sure. So which way do you want to go? This way? Or do you want to go? Oh, how do I want to do this? I don't know. I want to try to stick this down in here. Well, why not? Look at that. I don't know if y'all can see that, but the tire kind of fit right down in there, which is cool. Oh, who knew? Who knew? I don't know if y'all can see that, but the dragon fruit is fitting right down inside. And I tell you, I'm just working from what has been available at the market. Now we have to add some more. We go this way, or let's see what's up. Let's see what's up with you. Looks like you got a little roughed up a little bit. I have to do something else with you. Maybe not. This is so pretty. I could stick this right up here in the center. Decide what we want to do here. One, two, three. Okay. We can alternate. See how we can work this. So hard decisions. This way or this way? Okay. Which way should we go? Let's go this way. Okay, let's go this way. Okay, so what's next? What should we do next for the cake? It's so pretty. This is kind of big to just sit there like that. Some more dragon fruit. So what should we do in the center? I think we got to get a little bit of herbs from out in the garden. Well, what could we do with this piece right here? Okay, so I just went back out into the garden and I just pulled some cinnamon basil. If you've never smelled this, this is so fragrant. And a little piece of a sunflower. I don't know if I'm going to make use of it, but beauty is really, really important to the whole experience. So let me just rinse them off. Make sure we don't have any funky the herb. Yeah, really rinse your herb off good. So rinse the herbs off. See what we've got here. Alright, so here's how our cake is shaping up so far. So I took the dragon fruit. I was like, what am I going to do? I wasn't sure how I was going to place it. So here's what we have so far. We have the dragon fruit and we have the pitaya. So I think it just needs a pop more color. I don't know if we're going to go with this, the sunflower, or sunflower and the basil. I don't know if there's too much. I think I might have to go with the sunflower. But I don't know how it's going to survive for tomorrow. But I think I will put the sunflower in there. And here is our live goddess cake. I'm so excited. I'm so excited. So we made it from all natural ingredients. Oh my gosh, thank you so much for spending this time with me. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to put it into the refrigerator / the freezer and let it chill, and then we will slice it tomorrow. Right, so to make sure we get all of our greens in, We make sure we get all of our greens in, and then we have something to look forward to. So isn't that sweet? And I still, maybe I'll put this in also. I don't know if I can fit this too. Is this too decadent? Is this too much? Is this too much to put another? I think that might be a little bit too much. So I think I'm going to stick right there. But that is our goddess cake, and we're just going to put it to chill. And I have all of this other leftover fresh fruit. Thank you so much for joining me for these decadent treats. I'm going to clean up. We still have some things to rinse off. And then we're going to be going into preparation for our 3-day nutritional fast. Not water fast, a nutritional fast and a reset. So I'm excited. Thank you so much for joining me. And I can't wait to see pictures of how your cakes are coming out. Do remember there's so much variation and so many different ways that we can work these living passion cakes, foods for goddesses and humans and special people like you. So let's take one more look before you go. Look at all our cake came out. I'm so excited. I will see you soon.